It is 10 to 12. I mean, the song, I suppose, kicked things off. The woman who sings it, Heather Small, is not only the mother of a Labour councillor, but she was also photographed in August in a Stop Rwanda T-shirt as a proud supporter of the Care for Calais campaign to get rid of that despicable policy that Liz Truss just pledged to impose still further. I just let you have a little listen to the lyrics of the song that Liz Truss chose to come on to stage 2 today.
You've done me wrong, your time is up. You took a sip from the devil's cup. You broke my heart, there's no way back. Move right out of here, baby, go pack your bags.
It's a novel choice. You got that right, Theo.
Yes. The problem with this speech from Liz Truss was that it didn't actually include anything of substance. So a conference speech from a Prime Minister, indeed a conference speech from...
What about the anti-growth coalition?
We'll come on to that in a second.
Okay.
That was going to be on the plus points. At least we know exactly what she stands for. She set it out. But just going back to what it didn't have any policy announcements. So a conference speech is like the beginning of your academic year speech from your headmaster, stands up and says, this is what the school's about, this is what you're going to be doing. And Liz Truss would want this in usual time, and this is what any Prime Minister wants, or a leader of the opposition wants, is to set out the policy agenda for the year. But of course, the policy agenda that was set out in the mini-budget, in terms of actual policies, in terms of what they want to do when it comes to tax, was blown apart by Conservative MPs within 24 hours of the conference starting. And so it wasn't just a question of having to reverse the 45p, the abolition of the 45p rate, which they did. But Liz Truss can't say anything more because the line has been drawn. Senior Conservatives like Grant Shapps or Michael Gove, even within our own cabinet, we heard dissent from Penny Mordaunt, they have set the bar that actually if you want to get any new policy announcement over the line, then it needs to go, you need to run it by us first. And Liz Truss can't do that.
There was disingenuousness there as well, because claiming that they got rid of it, as Kwarteng has already done, because it was becoming a distraction. It's not really true. They had to abandon it because
they couldn't get it through the House of Commons.
They were literally told by the chair of the 1922 committee that they didn't have the numbers to get it through the House of Commons.
Precisely.
So the people in that room are the reason why it was abandoned, and yet when she tells a fib about why it was abandoned, the people in that room clap their hands.
And the next argument is going to be around universal credit. The Prime Minister trying to redraw the line as to her leadership, the Conservative Party that she wants to lead, versus, as she put it, the enemies of enterprise, the anti-growth coalition. Into that pot you can put into the Labour Party, the SNP, the protesters even from Greenpeace who were in the hall and held up that banner. But when it comes in over the next couple of weeks and going forward towards the medium fiscal term budget in November, or statement in November, there are going to be voices within her own party, her own MPs, and indeed her own cabinet, who are going to be saying, actually, you can't press ahead with cutting universal credit down to just 3% increase, which was what Rishi Sunak planned to do through to April of next year. And the question for Liz Truss is, are you going to lump those MPs into your anti-enterprise, anti-growth coalition? Because they're forcing, or they'll be forcing Liz Truss to make spending commitments north of 12, 13, 14 billion pounds that she wouldn't otherwise have to make were it not for the fact that she's facing such significant opposition from her own MPs.
So, as is often the case these days with right-wing politics, I know what she's against.
Yes.
I don't really know what she's for. I mean, saying that you're in favour of growth is like saying you're in favour of mums or apple pie. We're all in favour of that. And we had quite good growth in this country until about 2008. It's 12 years of Tory rule in the aftermath of a global financial crisis that perhaps explains the rather moribund state of play.
Well, the dividing line, as you know, is how do you get that? How do you get that growth? Do you say that actually
you want to be in the biggest free market you can find for a start, don't you?
So how do you achieve that economic growth? And the point that Liz Truss has made, and this is where she's having a disagreement with her own backbenchers, is that you need to slash taxes in order to, in this conversation we've had, in order to encourage people to invest in this country and create jobs and wealth in this country. And of course, that, as we know what happened with the markets and the decline of the pound, the support that had to be provided by the Bank of England, had almost the opposite effect of what Liz Truss was trying to achieve, because money was leaving money investment was leaving the UK, and that was the problem.
Yes, I mean, one of the reasons why they're so reluctant, or were so reluctant, they've had to U-turn on this as well to get the OBR involved, is that if you read OBR forecasts, if you look specifically at what the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, the TCA, the Brexit that they got done is going to do to long-run productivity, reducing it in short by at least 4%. She's doing that thing again, claiming to be in favour of something that the central policy platform of her entire administration has very deliberately and explicitly banjaxed and undermined.
But moving on, just talking about...
Am I going to get a phone-in out of this?
Yeah, I think so. Just
reaction to that?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you?
What was that? We'll build it and they'll... What's that film? Field of Dreams? Build it and they come?
If you build it, they will come.
That's what you just told me.
I know you can't grow a pie. Let's have a chat with Lewis Goodall, actually, okay. our LBC colleague, who's still there. How are you going to get back, Lewis? There's a train strike.
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. I'm hoping to find someone from the Anti-Growth Coalition to give me a lift.
Give you a lift back to North London. What exactly is the Anti-Growth Coalition? And there's two answers to this. I'd like you to provide both of them. Obviously, what Liz Truss intends it to mean, and then what you think it means in terms of her political positioning.
Yeah, look, I think what Liz Truss intends it to mean is anyone who doesn't agree with her about the economic prospectus. Because, the thing about Liz Truss and what she's saying about the economy is that her diagnosis, I think most people involved in sort of the political economic debate, economists would agree with her. It's absolutely unarguable to say that the Britain's economy has grown too slowly over the course of the last 10, 12 years or so. Some of that is about the crash, some of it about austerity, some of it about Brexit, some of it about COVID, and some of it about long-term economic factors. The question is about the prescription, and that is much more contested. There are plenty of economists who would say that, short-term sugar rush tax cuts is not really the answer. It won't boost productivity, it won't boost growth, it won't boost investment, all those sort of that. We've tried that before and it's failed. But so Liz Truss is just trying to sort of, anyone who disagrees with that, that's the Anti-Growth Coalition. I think in terms of what, the people how they will respond to it, I think the question is simply, well, is it actually going to really be the sort of thing that it will resonate with the public? Will the public react to this idea of an anti-growth coalition, particularly when times are hard, inflation's going up, you've got strikes and so on? I'm not sure. I think it's one of those things that politically, for people who are political watching it, it can kind of frame an argument. But whether it has much purchase with the public, I think is less convincing.
It's odd, actually. It occurred to me when she said that she sort of held up Twitter, North London and podcast as the new enemies of the people. Oddly, this stuff will play best with sort of right-wing Twitter, really, as opposed to the Red Wall or the British public in general.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think you kind of sometimes see that with the way that sometimes some of politics goes, particularly in the Conservative Party at the moment. They sometimes say things like, lacerate Twitter or, all of these things, but actually often it's just those people who are particularly interested in it. I think in terms of what Liz Truss is trying to do as well, look, Liz Truss is the sort of politician who, much like her great hero, Margaret Thatcher, she strives off enemies to fight. And in a way, that's kind of one of the stories of modern conservatism. It's this idea around kind of the enemy without, the enemy within, finding different enemies to slay. And I think that is probably part of what Truss is trying to do. She's not a conciliator as a politician. The question is whether that's a message the public really want to hear. It's been a long few years, one way or the other, for some of the crises I just mentioned. What Truss is basically saying, I think the argument now, funnily enough, between Starmer and Truss is Starmer on the one hand saying, I want to calm things down, and to some extent Truss saying, I want to rile things up, I want to shake things up. I think the question is, in terms of a weary public who have become pretty, in a way, sick of politics, which message they're more receptive to?
It's a very good point. The polling will no doubt be with us in the next couple of days.